Rock struck her shoulders first. Then a boot caught her ribs. She staggered forward, clutching the baby swaddled in her arms, while two little girls clung to her skirt. Dust curled around their bare feet as the crowd pushed her through the square, jeering louder than the church bell that tolled above them. 3 daughters, the sheriff barked from the wooden steps. 3 useless mouths. No son to plow, no son to fight, no son to carry the name. The woman bit down on a cry as another stone flew. Her eldest girl whimpered, hiding her face against her thigh. Men laughed. Women sneered. Someone spat, and it streaked across her cheek. The sheriff lifted his rifle and fired into the sky, the shot echoing over the low roofs and sagging fences. Silence followed. He raised a leather cord, frayed at the ends. By law of this town, he said, she is cast out, a burden to her kin. Let the desert take her. 2 deputies shoved her past the last post, where the main road met the wild land. The doors of the saloon swung wide. Faces crowded the porch, eager for her shame. The heat pressed down like an anvil, the sun glaring white on the dust. Her knees buckled. She fell, clutching the baby tight. A hush swept the street. Boot steps echoed. Slow, heavy. A figure stepped from the shade near the hitching post. Long coat faded to gray, hat brim low, silver in his beard catching the light. He didn't hurry, didn't raise his voice. Just let a single silver dollar gleam in his palm. "I'll take her," he said. The sheriff frowned. "She's no good, Mercer. Leave her to the buzzards." The man dropped the coin in the dirt at the sheriff's boots. The sound of metal against stone carried sharper than the gunshot had. "You heard me," he said again, steady as a man naming the hour. "She's coming with me." Laughter broke the stillness. "Old fool's lonely," someone shouted. "Dollar for a mouth that won't shut." Another spat in the dirt. The sheriff studied him, then bent, picked up the coin, turned it in his hand. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Your loss, rancher." He tucked the silver into his vest. The crowd roared with mockery as Mercer stepped forward, offering his hand. The woman flinched, drawing back like a cornered animal. His eyes met hers, tired, yes, but not cruel. No pity either, only something hollow and endless, like the desert stretching behind him. "Up," he said. She forced her legs beneath her. He lifted the baby from her arms with a gentleness that seemed wrong in those scarred hands. He set the child against her chest again once she stood. Then he guided her past the edge of town where a horse waited, saddlebags full. No one followed. The laughter carried after them, but only until the dust swallowed the sound. The desert met them with silence. Wind hissed through sagebrush, carrying the sting of sand. Mercer rode steady, reins loose, as she stumbled alongside his horse, the girls too small to keep pace. At last, without a word, he lifted them one by one onto the saddle. The baby whimpered. The 2 older clutched the saddle horn like it might vanish. "Walk," he told her. So she did, through miles of scorched earth until the sky burned orange and the mountains cut black shapes against it. Not once did he turn his head. By nightfall they reached the ranch, weatherboards leaning against the wind, corrals empty but for dust, a windmill creaking like old bones. He dismounted, tied the horse, and pushed open the door of a shack that smelled of smoke and leather. "Inside," he said. She entered, clutching her daughters close. Shadows danced on rough plank walls. A table, a chair, a cot, nothing more. He lit a lamp, its glow soft against the hard lines of his face. Then he set a loaf of bread on the table. "Eat." Her hands trembled as she broke pieces for the girls. They ate like wolves. She kept none for herself. Mercer lowered himself onto the chair, watching. He didn't speak, didn't ask her name, just sat, shoulders hunched, hands folded, gaze far beyond the lamplight. Hours later, after the girls had curled on the cot, she whispered, "Why?" He didn't answer at first. Then, "Work needs doing." That was all. Days bled into one another. Sun rose hard, burned the sky white, sank behind jagged peaks. The woman carried water, stacked wood, mended tack. Mercer spoke little, only when he showed her how to tie a rope or mend a fence. His hands guided without softness, yet never struck. One morning, he placed a rifle in her grip. "Hold it," he said. Her breath caught. The weight dragged at her arms. He stepped behind, adjusting her stance, the heat of him close but distant as stone. "Aim!" The shot cracked across the valley. She staggered. He took the gun, reloaded, set it back in her hands. Again. Days turned to weeks. She learned to ride, to fire straight, to patch a saddle. The girls played in the dust, laughter faint against the silence of plains. At night, coyotes sang. Mercer sat by the fire, eyes fixed on the horizon. She asked nothing more of him, but sometimes caught him tracing the revolver at his belt, cleaning it with the patience of a priest at prayer. One night the wind rose fierce, rattling the shutters. She fed the fire higher, wrapped the girls in blankets. Mercer sat outside, hat pulled low, coat flapping against the gale. When he came in, his face was darker than the storm. He lowered himself before the fire, staring into its heart. "This land," he said at last, voice gravel low, "don't forgive, but it remembers every sin, every name. And when it comes for you," he looked at her, eyes catching the flames, "you'd best be ready." Her heart pounded against her ribs. She saw then the truth. He hadn't saved her out of mercy. He was preparing her. For what? She didn't know. Outside, the storm rolled across the desert like an army, thunder shaking the earth. Inside, silence pressed thick, broken only by the crack of the fire and the shallow breath of sleeping children. She held the baby tighter and watched the rancher, who sat like a man waiting for ghosts he knew would come. "You're coming with me," said the lonely rancher to the woman punished for giving birth to 3 girls ***. The first hoofbeat shattered the silence. Then another, a dozen more. Dust rose along the horizon like storm clouds, riders cutting hard across the desert floor. The woman froze where she stood at corral, rope slack in her hand. The girls scrambled to her side, clutching her skirt. Mercer stepped from the barn, rifle already in his grip. He didn't look at her, didn't look at the children, his eyes fixed on the approaching dust. The riders slowed as they neared, horses tossing heads, snorts sharp in the dry air. At their center rode the sheriff, hat low, grin wide, badge flashing in the sun. "Well, I'll be damned," he called, voice carrying easy across the valley. "The old rancher's keeping my property fed." The woman felt her throat close. Mercer didn't move. "Town says she belongs to the law," the sheriff went on. "She's ours to punish. You just prolonged the sentence." The deputies laughed. Guns glinted in the saddle light. Mercer shifted the rifle higher, sight steady. "She's under my roof." "Your roof don't matter," the sheriff sneered. "A man can't buy what's cursed." The woman's hands clenched around the rope. Her heart pounded in her ears. The sheriff leaned forward in his saddle. "Step aside, rancher. We'll take her, and you can go back to your ghosts." Silence. Mercer lowered the rifle. For a heartbeat she thought he'd yield. Instead, he turned, pressing the weapon into her hands. Her fingers curled clumsily around the stock. He spoke low, so only she heard. "This fight's yours." Her breath caught. "I can't." "You can." His voice was iron. The sheriff laughed, shaking his head. "Look at that. Widowmaker's gone soft." Handing his gun to a woman. The word cut the air. Widowmaker. The outlaws stirred uneasily. Even the deputies shifted in their saddles. The name carried weight. Old stories whispered in saloons. Men who vanished in duels. Trails stained red. The sheriff grinned wider. "So it's true." The Widowmaker crawled off to rot in the dust. Mercer didn't blink. "I swore never to draw again." "Then you'll die with your vow," the sheriff spat. The woman raised a rifle. Her arms trembled, but not from weakness. Something sharper, something cold moving through her. She remembered Mercer's hands guiding hers, the crack of shots across the valley, the sting of recoil. The sheriff's grin faltered. "Put that thing down, girl," he barked. "You ain't got it in you." Her daughters pressed tighter to her skirt. She steadied her breath. The barrel stopped shaking. The valley held its breath. Even the wind stilled. The sheriff went for his gun. Her fingers squeezed. The shot tore the silence apart. The sheriff jerked sideways, hat spinning from his head as he hit the ground. Dust billowed where he fell. His horse reared, screaming. The deputies froze. None reached for their weapons. They stared at her. The woman who'd been dragged through their town, mocked, cast out. Now standing, rifle leveled, smoke curling from the barrel. "Take him," she said, voice low, steady. No one moved. Her second shot split the air, a bullet striking the dirt inches from a deputy's boot. He yelped, scrambling to drag the sheriff's limp body across the saddle. The others followed, hauling the man up, spurring their horses into a wild retreat. Dust swallowed them. The silence returned, heavier than before. The woman lowered the rifle, chest heaving. Mercer watched her, eyes dark, unreadable. "You were ready," he said. She shook her head, the weight of the rifle dragging her arms down. "You made me ready?" He gave a slow nod. "Then my work's done." Her gaze snapped to him. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer, just turned toward the horizon where the riders had vanished. The setting sun bleeding red across the sky. The girls clung to her, trembling. She pulled them close, pressing her lips to their hair. The rifle fell heavier now, as if it carried not just iron, but every moment had brought her here, every stone thrown, every cruel word. Every night she thought she'd die alone in the dust. Mercer sat heavily on the porch steps, revolver in his lap. He didn't clean it, didn't touch it, just stared at the ground, shoulders sagging. "Your story begins now," he murmured, voice almost lost the wind. Hers, not his. She stood there with her daughters, rifle gripped firm in her hand, the taste of gun smoke still sharp on her tongue. The desert stretched endless before her, no longer a prison but a road. Somewhere, far off, coyotes began to howl, not mournful now. Something wilder, sharper, as if echoing the shot she had fired.